Hi.
Hi. This is Matthew.
This is Eric.
And we're on the Odd Atheist Friends.
Hi, I'm Aaron Rod.
Hi, I'm Andrew Torres of Opening Arguments.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ben Davis.
Hi, this is David G. McPhee. Hello, I'm Dr. Hector Garcia.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jerry Coyne.
Hi, I'm Nate Phelps.
Hi, I'm Shelley Siegel.
Hi, I'm Thomas Smith of Serious Inquiries Only.
Hi, I'm Seth Andrews. I'm host of thethinkingatheist.com.
Hi, I'm Ethan Siegel.
Hi, I'm Robert Stanley of the Right to Reason podcast, and I took a left at the Valley.
And I loved it.
I know we shouldn't have to scream that we're atheists. You know, we don't have non-astrologers and all that. But with the religious people taking over the world, I mean, we can either speak up or be pushed into a corner.
I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith in unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.
Coming at you after the bong smoke clears, this is Left of the Valley. My name is Kevin, and I tell you that sex is like playing bridge. If you don't have a good partner, you better have a good hand.
That is true.
I applaud you for that, sir.
But you really should always just have a good hand.
I totally agree. Joining me as usual is the team. Geez, it's the team that will bring you vodka when life brings you lemons.
Oh, oranges. Vodka and orange juice is the way to go.
If you find it hard to laugh at yourself, she'll be happy to do it for you, Nancy.
There you go. We got a happy note starting off.
And she thought no one cared about her until she missed a few car payments, Christina.
Yeah, they love me.
And she wonders if you use tiny spoons to feed babies, do the Chinese use toothpicks?
Oh,
Kirsten.
That is so racist.
That is a bad joke. Kirsten, how could you?
Kirsten, I don't think I can marry you anymore. Like, oh my gosh.
Guys, welcome back. Hope you had a great week.
We did up to 2 minutes ago. We were.
Don't we just went full racist? Thanks, Kirsten.
My week's been amazing.
We're going to have a great show today because we'll be talking to our old friend Thomas Westbrook.
Yeah.
The Holy Koolaid channel and the Here and How podcast.
Yep.
And he's going to be talking to us about the Catholic Church. But first, let's do our usual chit-chat. Let's briefly talk about our show last week. Should I apologize once more?
Well, first of all, how much of the show do you remember that we can talk about?
Okay. Let's just say that. The marijuana effect on me, besides the point that we noticed that we started melting, by mid-show there, when we're interviewing our guests,
you were such a dick.
I was so lost. Thank goodness you were there, Nancy, because I was so lost. I couldn't focus for half a second.
What's this button? Well, I should press it.
Bringing that up, I had an argument with myself afterward because I thought, well, I've got that kind of personality that says jump in and do something, which isn't always the best, but unfortunately, that's where I am. And I began to think afterward, maybe I should have just been very quiet and allowed you to just...
Are you kidding? It would have been a lot of dead air.
Well, but the whole purpose of the show was to see what happened once, we partake. I wondered whether or not I sort of interfered with the natural flow of how you were reacting.
It's okay. So people could hear the chewing of the chips in the background. No.
There was a lot of chip chewing.
There was a lot of chip chewing. I think we conveyed the effects to the audience. I think they realized, that we weren't our normal selves. Not that we're normal to begin with. And I think overall it was a successful show. Ladies, do you feel that this is going to become a habit of you guys?
No.
No, I don't feel so either.
Until I'm 25 and my brain has finished developing, I'm not going to do it on the regular at all. Yeah. After 25, I'll reassess it. There's going to be a lot of new science that'll have been done and new studies, and we'll understand it a lot more. So I might my opinions around it might change for a regular indulgence, but until then, I'll be maybe once or twice a year.
Yeah, I feel no compulsion myself either to make this a regular thing. Although this week I was actually, sitting at home and trying to relax for the rest of the evening, just the end of the evening, and I did find myself wondering, I wonder what would happen right now if I had a bong hit, if it would actually help me relax even more. But besides that, I felt no compulsion to.
That's good.
Well, what about medical marijuana? If you had a condition where medical marijuana may help, would you do that? I mean, recreational marijuana you put sort of on the back burner, so to speak. But what about medical?
Oh, medical, I do. If it's going to help me.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say because I don't have a medical condition, right? I mean, if a medical condition forced me to take opioids, I probably would take them.
Well, then that's your answer.
The thing.
Sure. A better alternative at this point.
Yeah, if it's a better alternative to take something like marijuana like that, I mean, I felt no harm to it. I felt a bit sillier than usual and out of focus, like I said.
The world was a lot prettier.
For you, apparently. For me, it felt pretty normal there. Even after the show was over and you asked me if I was okay to drive, you know what? I probably would have been okay to drive.
No, you weren't.
Okay. Well, I felt
That's
like I
how
was
you
okay.
felt. That's how you felt. But your brain power wasn't on all cylinders.
It's never on all cylinders to begin with.
No.
So,
but anyway,
that's another conversation.
Everybody recovered it, and I think I think we did a good thing in experimenting because there really weren't any bad consequences, and
exactly.
we knew there wasn't going to be. At least we hoped.
And thank you so much for keeping us on track. Totally.
Aside from a sign in the elevator.
Yeah, there's a sign in the apartment building complex all of a sudden that appeared saying, "You are not allowed to smoke either cigarettes or marijuana."
In this premises.
Maybe they smell.
I don't think it was us on the third floor for an hour.
Oh, yeah.
And anybody that walked by in another hour would say, "Well, maybe I was mistaken. I don't smell it now."
Yeah, for sure, it wasn't just the one.
No.
The
incident.
legalization, there's probably been multiple people that are like, hey, I can
It's just when they smell does doing this. Oh, we can all do this, and the whole building started smoking.
Exactly.
Hotbox the building.
All right. Did you guys hear? This would be actually good enough for another brilliant moment. There is a billboard on Interstate 170 near St. Louis County that says "Make the gospel great again," and there's a picture of Trump, and then it says underneath, "The word became flesh."
I saw that.
Are you freaking kidding me? These people are actually putting Trump up there with Jesus.
What state is that? Do you know?
St. Louis County. I don't know what state that is.
St. Louis.
I don't know. It could be Mississippi or
Kentucky
Missouri. I don't know.
I don't know.
It was a red state, obviously.
Yeah. Are you kidding me? I mean,
that's kind of funny almost. Like, you have to be so deluded and not know your own text.
If there's any doubt that the cult to Trump is a thing, it's a thing.
Yeah.
It really is a thing.
It's really sad.
Speaking of Trump, the Business Insider says that the trade wars that Trump have been taking on took actual major bites of the GDP growth.
Surprising.
Yeah.
It's actually down. Yeah, exactly. Big surprise, right? It's actually down by 1.78 points. Worst numbers in 33 years. Without it, the growth would have been a phenomenal 5.3%.
And how does it affect all the other countries?
Well, that's a good question. It goes from country to country, I guess. But, we knew it from the get-go that, this was not a good idea. But, hey, make America great again, right? By making it worse.
Well, I think that we took a small step of making America great again in the midterms, which we were all counting. Our fingers were crossed.
Which we'll chat about a bit about as well. Did you guys hear in Canadian news the MP Tony Clement? He dropped from caucus after sexting. He sent a couple of pictures to some woman, and then apparently he went to the cops because apparently this picture came back and they were asking for 50,000 euros.
They were blackmailing him.
Yeah, they were trying to blackmail him.
That's when you just be like, what else?
What the hell? Well, first of all, what the hell was this guy thinking? Because this guy's got,
he was thinking with his penis.
Yeah, apparently.
This guy's got no judgment whatsoever.
No, because this guy's also part of the National Security and Intelligence Committee.
Oh my gosh, he's so stupid.
So this was like
security, intelligence, sexting. What's wrong with you? Which one of these things is not like the other?
Not like the other. But it's one of those things that it's bad to do that as an MP. And I can understand, if guys out there don't understand, you're really horny or something like that, you're not thinking all that straight. Fine. I'll give that pass. But if you're a member of the Intelligence Committee, you really should not even come close to that.
Take a step backward. If you're a responsible human being, you don't even have to be elected an MP in order to know that you're responsible for your behavior. This guy, unfortunately, he sabotaged himself. So whatever consequences there are, I don't feel hopefully he gets some help, because his mind is
don't have a lot of pity for him.
So the one thing that I'm really actually happy that he did is he reported it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people would have just been like...
It could have been way worse, right?
Yeah.
You could let it go on and it could have become
and also,
worse.
is he married? Or...
Yes, of course.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, and he had some other incidences before this one that should have woken him up, and yet he continued.
See me as a polyamorous person, I don't like... That for me isn't like, oh my gosh, burn him down.
No, and as a blackmailer, you're quite good at it too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know how to pick them out, those married men. Especially if they're rich.
The late, great Stephen Hawkins, his thesis and his wheelchair went to auction. His wheelchair fetched 300,000 pounds.
Oh, I was expecting more.
Pounds, which is 515,000 Canadian.
I was still expecting
What
more.
are they going to do with it?
I don't know.
Sit in it?
I mean, is it going to go on exhibit?
I don't know. His dissertation went for twice as much.
Yeah.
It's a 117-page from 1965 named The Properties of Expanding Universes. And
that's worth something.
Yes, it went for 584,000 pounds, which is a bit more than $1 million Canadian.
Yeah, that's more what I was expecting.
So that's pretty fitting for the man, I think. You guys remember a couple of months ago we talked about the Parker Solar Probe. We talked about they were sending a probe to the sun.
Yeah.
And we made the comparison with the football field, saying if the Earth was on one end and the sun on the other end, it would be on the 4-yard line.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Well, it made its first orbit around the sun.
Yay!
And went within 24 million kilometers from the sun on November 5th, and then it phoned home on November 7th to say it was okay.
Aww.
Yay!
So,
it's kind of adorable.
At its closest approach, it flew at 343,000 kilometers an hour. Or for our American friends, that's 213 miles per hour.
That's pretty good.
213,000 miles per hour.
Yeah. 200 miles, we'd be like, chug, 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 chug.
There is a 5-year-old Nigerian girl that's been dubbed the most beautiful in the world. Did you
I
guys
saw that
see
picture.
I saw your comment. I
She
paid more
doesn't look
attention.
real.
Yeah, I
She's
paid
quite
more
stunning.
attention to your comment than I did to the girl, because once I read that comment that said, well, go ahead, you say it.
Well, I posted it. I mean, I'm sure she's real, but I mean, she looks like a porcelain doll.
Yeah.
I mean, she is
Makeup
stunningly
does
beautiful.
wonders.
Yeah, she is quite stunning.
I thought
Almost like too beautiful. It's like,
well,
holy
when
crap.
you put that, is she real? I thought you meant, is she? What do you call it
painting?
when they're not artificial intelligence, but they're put together?
Oh, wax.
By
Figure? No.
No, the models that they now make that CG.
Oh, you mean like
right,
like Photoshopped or Phototouched or
no,
something
not
like that?
Photoshop, where they're actually designed
created.
and developed.
Oh, okay.
And there's movies that use what is
CGI.
that?
CGI.
CGI. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's what I thought you meant.
No. I mean, she's a beautiful, beautiful little girl. But you look at her and you're thinking, if somebody was to tell me, that's just a porcelain doll, I would totally believe it. Before she was an actual person.
See, for me, it's not weird, like, seeing little, like, people who are gorgeous like that. Because there are some people who just genetically have really nice faces.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And she was.
And you can tell in the picture it was a photo shoot, so there was makeup, hair.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have no idea if there was touch-ups on the picture at all. Like, I don't know if... Because a lot of times they do, like, touch-ups.
She's a stunningly beautiful little kid,
Yeah,
that's for
she
sure.
is.
And her name is, oh God, I'm probably going to massacre this, Jelana? Well, whatever. So we'll have to see if she pursues that career into modeling.
Yeah,
Well, I have to
yeah.
see if she makes live appearances somewhere. I mean, I hate to put a little 5-year-old through that, but
I just hope she has a really good adult support network around her.
Yeah,
That's not going to
exactly.
let her get taken advantage of,
Yeah.
especially because she's in Nigeria.
And it's also nice also that the
Or
most-
is she in Nigeria still?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's also nice that the most beautiful kid in the world right now is actually somebody of African descent, and it's not somebody
surprising.
white, right? We've celebrated this year, I guess, we're celebrating the 100-year end of World War
Yeah.
I. You guys have any thoughts on this?
Time passes really freaking fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently right now there are some ceremonies that are happening. It's Memorial Day for us tomorrow. And apparently there are some things happening right now in France. And this is that Trump won't show up because he's in France, but he won't show up because it's raining.
Wait,
Yeah.
seriously?
Of course.
Well,
It's going to damage his hair.
He doesn't know how to use an umbrella, as we've seen.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, we've seen some videos of that.
well, it does make everybody think about what progress we've made and what has set us back, and the whole, in science and psychology and in the arts and everything. Where are we now? Are we better off? So
I think we are a lot better off as a world, as a globe, as a whole. We are better than 100 years ago. There are specific regions that are on a decline due to certain people.
Historians will tell you that World War I doesn't really get its due because we think of, it's not quite as bad as World War II, and in some ways you're right, there were more deaths in World War II, but World War I really was a world war because in World War II, of course, you had your major powers fighting each other, but in World War I you actually had a whole bunch of skirmishes between countries and not just the main powers, and I think it doesn't get its due. And I can't help but smile whenever I see, especially tanks from World War I. You've seen a World War I tank? No. It looks nothing like what a tank looks today. It looks like some kind of parallelogram or something like that. It's really, really neatly done.
Well, that brings to mind, I guess, the Harry Truman quote: "Those who don't understand history are doomed to repeat it." Is it understand history or learn from? Yeah. Well, I screwed that up, but I think that probably every so often is a really good thing to remember.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you look at the States right now. Is they're a very undereducated population.
Yes,
and they're repeating horrible mistakes of Germany.
Yeah. Well, I don't like to make that comparison to Nazi Germany, but at this point, I don't like to go there. I really don't.
There.
I'm kind of forced to do that now. Last but certainly not least, Greece has decided to remove 10,000 priests from the government payroll.
I just read the headline. So what's the skinny on that?
It's not really as much. It sounds great like that when you read it.
Okay.
Priests are known as civil servants in Greece, and they're paid by the government. And in their efforts to reduce the public sector, because Greece has been in financial trouble for a long time, they say they will try to remove the priests, but of course the priests are fighting back, and they've always been part of the government and all that stuff. But so the government are basically at this point they're saying they will keep paying the salary, but the priests are no longer civil servants. So it's like a mini step towards that.
What?
So it's costing them 200 million euros a year to have those priests there. So, which is so freaking useless if you ask me.
So they're
but it's
paying
part
them,
of their society,
and they're not doing any work.
Well, they're the work they do. They might not necessarily do the kind of work that our priests do.
Yeah.
They might actually get a bit more involved in the politics in Greece. That's a question I can't really answer. But it's going to be an interesting thing to look at and keep an eye on.
Yeah.
And last but certainly not least, Orange Julius, I want your thoughts about how he's attacking the press.
Oh my God.
Especially this week.
It's in character.
Yeah. This is really disturbing at this point. I mean, there was a cartoon that was circulating about the whole Jim Acosta thing, how this intern was trying to take the microphone away from him, and Trump was telling him to sit down. He doesn't want to hear or ask or answer the question. But they replaced Jim Acosta with a draft of the First Amendment. And I thought that was a powerful, powerful image. And it really is where the United States are right now. The government is trying to if they don't like your question, They don't like you as a reporter. And if you ask something that's not a softball, they will try to shut you down.
Yeah.
And that should be absolutely scary. Which is why I don't understand the results of their vote. I understand that, they had a blue ripple. I wouldn't call it a blue wave. I was hoping for a blue wave. They had a blue ripple, but it's still, Nancy, you and I were talking about this just before the show, 113 million people came out to vote for this midterm election, which is roughly 1/3 of the U.S. No offense to you, my American friends, but what the hell is it going to take for you guys to get off the couch? I mean, 1/3 of the country went out to vote. I mean, I know it's not a presidential election. I know
having the day off work might help.
Well, maybe.
Because a lot of people will lose their jobs if they go to vote.
Well, we were, according to what we were talking about earlier, there are always going to be people who are apathetic until, as you were saying so dramatically, when the jackboots come and knock on your door, then all of a sudden you realize, well, maybe I shouldn't have been so apathetic now. Who's going to help me now?
Yeah.
And I understand that, but I have to be a little more optimistic, because I think even though there was a small number that turned out, which was no surprise, there were more people that turned out than ever had in the midterms.
That's the silver lining.
And the people who turned out are a force for good, because the the Democrats regained the House, which means there are now going to be checks and balances on Trump. So even though he is outrageous, and even though Sessions tried to strip the entire Department of Justice from anything having to do with civil rights and, maintain their religious posture, they're not going to be able to get away with it, because now there are people who really care about the First Amendment, all the amendments, and democracy. And I know that's putting a big weight, and maybe a big optimistic weight, on the Democrats, but I really think now that the committees have Democratic leaders, that they're going to haul people in front. They're going to use the subpoena power, and even though the press corps are getting battered by Trump, they're not going to get battered in terms of their ability to speak truth to power and to ask questions, because they are protected, and the ACLU and other organizations will stand up, and the public will stand up to make sure that they're not silenced. I sure
hope
believe
so.
that.
I mean, I appreciate your optimism, and you're more optimistic than I am on something like that. But in my simplistic mind, I look at it this way: let's say 120 million came out. Let's round it up to 120 million, right? Came up to vote. You're roughly saying that 60 million of these people came out to vote for Trump, and the other 60 million voted roughly, right? Up and down, half and half, and the other 60 million voted against. So essentially, you have $60 million, so 60 million people that could see how far this country is compared to where it used to be. In 1970s, you could actually say, land of the free, home of the brave. And now you're living in a country that essentially is tearing kids away from their mothers because they're trying to cross into the country. They're refugees. They're sending armed guards to the border to repel people that are desperate and refugees. You get white nationalists walking down the street. You get the president attacking the Fifth Estate and trying to attack the free press and mocking people openly in public, and women. What is it going to take? When is it enough for Americans to say, okay, enough is enough? This is not who we are. The midterms, I hate to say it, but remember when Trump first came in, I said, the thing about the Trump election was it kind of put a mirror up to Americans' face and say, this is a reflection of who you are. This midterm election, unfortunately, confirmed that. Yes, you are not the country you think you are, America. I'm sorry. You are not the country you think you are. You're the country that is run by white supremacists, bigots, and corruption. And if you can't get off your duff to change that, then you deserve what you get. I'm sorry.
I appreciate the dark picture that you paint. because that certainly is part of the American character and what's going on. The rise of anti-Semitism, the rise of mass murderers, and all these kinds of things. The corruption that's currently in the cabinet, and the old white men who feel privileged. That's all part of the American character, and there's always a struggle. But the struggle has a way of tipping one way or the other. Right now, it's tipping in their favor. However, when you look at the makeup of the House and you see the diversity that's there, you see the women who are there,
it's a silver lining.
People, of all different backgrounds. We finally have, at least in the House, if they can assume, the mantle of true responsibility, you have people that actually reflect the makeup of the U.S. And so now you give voice to people who have not had a voice, who have not really been represented. And I think that young power change will tip back. How far back? We don't know. But at least we're on a pathway of recovering from these last 2 hideous years under your favorite Mango Mussolini.
I also think that when you're looking at American elections right now, you have to realize that when you're talking about how many people was it that voted in the midterms?
About 113.
More than
usual.
When 113 million people vote, it's not 1/3 voted for Trump, 1/3 voted for like Trump, like Republicans, 1/3 for Democrats, and like the middle are like kind of split. It's how American elections work. It's so gerrymandered that you can have the small amount of people who still think Trump is amazing and believe in his ideals can still get the power because of how their system is set up.
Yeah, but even if I gave you that, even if I get the gerrymandering, and if I even gave you 100 million people voted blue and only 13 million voted red, even if I give you that, it's still only 1/3 of the country.
But also you have to realize that
when you're in this much trouble.
When you look at America, their population, say, I think there's like 350 million people. How many of those are under the age of 18? How many of those are in the hospital and in Syria, like in conditions where they can't vote? So it's not the whole 350 million people that can vote. Because if you think like 75 million people are under the age of 18, you have to take that out of the voting population when you're critiquing.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. But I still think that, instead of this should have been a blue tsunami. It really should have been. And we got a ripple. We did get a wave, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about this, but we got a wave of apathy. And that to me is scary. And if Americans can't wake up from that, then their country is in trouble.
And I just want to say one more thing. I think another thing you have to realize is with Trump, he is a narcissist.
Oh, yeah.
And narcissists create fantasies that are really, that they're enticing. They're vibrant, and they pull people into those fantasies, and people want to live in those fantasies with them. So a lot of the people who still support Trump, they don't realize they're living in a fantasy.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think it's a positive step. It's not going to overcome all the forces of evil, but it's a positive step, and it's one that was needed. And I think to me the thing that is most encouraging is the young, vibrant diversity in the House.
I totally agree. That's the silver lining. All right, give us a top 10, Nancy.
Okie dokie. Well, I'm going to compare top 10s.
Okay.
Do something a little different. Remember, about a month or so ago, we did what countries were the most favorable for raising children.
Yes.
And the countries at that point were really interesting. And I said, well, but I wonder if you compare these countries of raising children to the countries that had the best educational system, how would they come out?
Yeah.
Good question.
Are they very similar?
Surprising.
Okay.
Really?
Okay. So here we have, just for review, here's the 10 top countries to raise children, starting with number 10, Austria, Australia, New Zealand, Switzerland, Netherlands, Canada, Finland, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark.
Yes.
A preponderance of
Northern European.
Oh, exactly. So you would
Slavic.
think that because
Socialist countries.
Yeah, you'd think that those would be the countries that would turn up on those that place the most value in education.
Well, I wouldn't say the most value in education, because Japan is definitely on the value of education.
I remember saying I was surprised that Japan wasn't on that list.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take this like 10 to 10. The 10 most if I could talk straight, that would show that I at least had an education wherever I
It's the after effects of the pot.
Okay, so number 10 on top education systems in the world, Poland.
Oh, really?
Poland has valued education, I guess, since they've, since World War II, they've been able to put more resources in, which is really interesting, because who would think that that Poland would be number 10? But this by the way, this is the first report was done by by U.S. News and World Report, and it was a good report. This one was done by an organization called Pearson, which is a British multinational publishing and education company.
Okay,
so
yeah.
they're both good. They're both well sourced.
sources.
So Poland, number 9, Ireland.
Really?
Really?
So are these the best education systems or societies that value education?
Well, they put more resources. They do value education, and they put more resources to make sure that their educational systems are.
I find that surprising, because I know Ireland still has a lot of Catholic schools and stuff.
Oh, Catholics are known for having a good sense of education too, right?
This has to do, by the way, with primary, secondary, and high school and higher education.
Okay.
So, So, number 8, the Netherlands, which came in.
Surprised they're only 8.
Which is good. So if you want to raise kids in a good country and know that you send them to school, they'll get a good education. Netherlands is good. Number 7.
Canada?
There you go.
Go
and we were
us.
number 5 on the other. So Canada is in middle ground, which is wonderful. I mean that gives us a lot of satisfaction. That,
the fact that
we're moving in the right
fact
direction.
that we're making the top 10 is good by me.
Well, we're actually I believe we're the most educated country for a population.
Actually, the most literate.
Oh, is it literate?
Yeah, 99% of the population is actually literate.
Well, no, I think the statistic I was looking at was that over 50% of our population has been to further education after high school.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Whether it be a trade school,
I remember seeing that
university,
stat too,
college. Yeah.
By the way, the Netherlands and Canada were neck and neck in raising children, and neck pretty much in this too, which is interesting.
Which is funny, because the Netherlands and us love each other.
Yes.
Yeah, we do.
We have a very good relationship with them.
Yeah, in many ways. So number 6 is the UK.
Okay.
We know they've always valued the
they have
education.
like Cambridge and stuff like that.
Yeah, which is good. Number 5, and this is really interesting that it just came in at number 5, is Finland. Yeah, which came in at number 4, but that's pretty close.
Yeah, 4 and 5. That's pretty close.
Okay, number 4. Here we go. Hong Kong.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Those Asian countries.
Yeah.
Finally, Asian countries are making an appearance on the chart.
And not good for raising kids, but you want them educated.
Hong Kong is extremely expensive, extremely busy. I can understand the education system, but a place to raise a kid there, I don't know.
Number 2, Japan.
There we go. There we go. Education in Japan.
Yeah. Education.
Your kid's going to be at a higher risk of suicide. They're going to be educated.
Maybe the reason these Hong Kong and Japan didn't appear on the first list was maybe a question of density. It is such a dense country.
Very true.
It maybe makes it difficult to raise a child because it takes a village.
Okay. Anybody want to guess number 1?
Denmark.
Crickets.
Duh.
I'll go with that. Denmark.
South Korea.
Oh, I didn't even
South Korea?
South Korea.
I'm sorry.
now that you say that makes all the sense in the world now.
So
here's
then,
me all like Northern European centric.
Yeah,
Like Denmark has to be in there.
The top 4 are all Asian. So why? And the newest rankings, according to how this is all analyzed, has to do that the improvement of the Asian education system is the advancement of the economic growth.
Yeah, that was like after World War II, right? It just boomed.
I think maybe the reason we haven't seen these Asian countries on the first list is because they're investing for the future now.
Very true.
And they're going to be on that list eventually down the road. But right now they're investing heavily in education.
They don't have a lot of kids.
That's true.
Their population
but they're
isn't high.
they're putting their money in the brain
absolutely.
power and the trust and building the infrastructure.
I was surprised China was not on that list either at this point.
Yeah.
But
Hong Kong.
China's
but
only
not
good
mainland.
if you're rich.
Yeah, mainland
If
China.
you're poor,
Hong Kong.
your kid's
Hong
in a
Kong was on there.
factory.
I guess Hong Kong counts as China, I guess.
But I mean, that reflects when you have people, when you have Chinese immigrants, Japanese immigrants that come to Canada or come to the U.S.
A lot of them
their
come around.
parents, and the Japanese, the parents. Just that's the one priority. Those kids go to school and they have to.
Absolutely.
They have to.
Absolutely.
Have to perform.
Fantastic.
Anyway, interesting to compare and contrast that.
I'm very proud of our placement.
Yes.
Our placement on that list.
Yes.
Both of them.
Yeah. So
Makes me happy to live where
let's
I live.
keep it up. All right, my dear Kirsten.
Yes.
You got another brilliant moment for us?
I sure do.
Brought to you by religion. Sorry, I'm happy. I got a puppy.
Okay, we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm on cloud 9.
You're always on cloud 9.
No, I'm not.
Some cloud anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Paul Makonda, the governor of a major city in Tanzania called Dar es Salaam, is demanding that citizens snitch on suspected homosexuals as part of his crackdown on the existence of gay people.
And this is why you don't spread your religions about hating gay people to foreign countries.
Well,
it gets better.
Well, you do.
One sec. She's still going. She's still going.
The move comes more than a year after the president of the country said even cows disapprove of homosexuality. So, Christina, I'm sorry. You're going to have to find a new job.
Oh, apparently he's never been around cows because those girls hump each other
all the time.
Heterosexuality, cow approved.
Wow, has he ever been around cows?
Oh my God! So I guess
or dogs.
Forget the expert of science. Cows is where we take our
But even that is wrong. Because where I work at a dairy farm, the girl cows hump each other all
the time. They get really horny.
Yeah, when they're in heat, they'll just hump anything. It's annoying sometimes because you want them to move. No,
it's annoying sometimes. You make it sound like they were trying to hump you.
I carry a stick in case they try. Then they get a boot. But I haven't had that happen yet. So
Christina's gonna come back one night and say I was molested by a cow. Sorry. Oh, it's moving.
Shit. Okay.
Oh, okay. So now I guess forget taking entrails of chickens. Now I guess we take our advice from cows.
Yeah.
All right. What else?
Makonda rules over the economic capital of the East African country, where same-sex acts between men can be punishable with a life sentence.
I thought you said Wakanda.
Yeah, I thought you said that too for a second there. That would have been interesting.
So wait a minute. Now, do we have to organize cow pride parades?
Cow pride parade.
I want to know.
I'm down for a rainbow cow.
I mean, this brings a whole new.
Yes.
Do rainbow cows produce like the milk you get in like Lucky Charms?
What?
Like when you pour milk into Lucky Charms, it changes colors. I wonder if that's the kind of
rainbow milk.
Rainbow milk. There we go.
Sorry,
there's an upside to this. That's for sure.
Speaking of milk, and speaking of you working in the industry, Christina.
Yeah.
Did you notice there are some American milk products now in the shelves?
Yeah, I glare at them.
Yeah.
And people don't buy them.
Don't buy them, people.
What's the one that's?
They're so gross.
It's called. What's the name of it?
I have no idea.
Fiber.
I don't even deign to put their names in my brain.
I don't even look at the other products.
For other important things.
Well,
the metric system.
We already have homo milk, so
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the thing they don't understand in the States. They don't have homogenized milk in the States.
It makes me really, really mad though that they let them in. I'm just like, no, hold your ball. Like,
well, they love the invisible hand in the market, and I think most Canadians will react like us and not buy it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Time will tell.
Sorry, back to you, Kirsten.
Yes.
Sorry for our rabbit trail. Back to Wakanda.
Oh my god.
For everyone's information, it's Makanda.
Yes. Anyways, Makanda rules over the economic capital of the East African country, where same-sex acts between men can be punishable with a life sentence.
Stupid.
That effectively makes his new decree a witch hunt by another name. I have information about the presence of many homosexuals in our province, Paul Makanda told reporters on Monday, calling on citizens to begin reporting homosexuals for roundups to begin next week. How offended is Makanda of something that doesn't even affect him that his response is to lock away suspected gay people for life?
Yeah, you know what's
that makes me sick.
You know what's going to happen? A couple of years on the road, we'll find out that he's gay too.
Yep.
It's usually how it happens.
It's a fine line between that and mass murdering gay people, a move that was actually considered in Uganda in 2014, didn't become law.
This is almost, I hate to say it, but it's almost a side effect of atheism. Because as atheism is growing stronger in places like the United States,
places.
Exactly. And where they go to countries that are very poor and undereducated.
Yep. Well, it was about the reason for the not the mass murdering, but close to it. Who were those evangelists that went to Uganda or to those countries to actually get those rules
missionaries
and policies?
Missionaries.
Do you remember? Because it was a group of U.S. evangelists that went to Uganda to try and get them to establish those rules and policies.
Yeah, and there was a guy that I forget his name.
I do too.
There was a specific character, and he was kicked out of Jamaica. He was kicked out of a whole bunch of countries for spreading hate like that.
Yeah.
You get kicked out of Jamaica is not LGBT friendly, by the way.
Yeah,
and you get kicked out of Jamaica, it's like, wow, you're really spreading hate to you.
But it's those guys from the U.S. that are promoting those kinds of hate policies because they know they can't quite bring them to fruition here, so they're going to vulnerable places where they can. It's horrible.
So, well, the cure to all this, and it will happen with time for sure, is education. That's the only way.
Do you want to know what's so funny? So, we had a Christian choir stay at my aunt's house once.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
And they still thought dragons were real.
Oh, jeez.
I'm like, how can they be teaching you things and they haven't mentioned the dragons aren't real?
Well, that's because they have dragons in the Bible.
Oh, my God.
All right. So let's take a quick pause, and when we come back, we'll be talking to our friend Thomas Westbrook.
Yay!
So stay with us.
If your skepticism is socially conscious and doesn't take itself too seriously, you might like life, the universe, and everything else.
People like Ray Comfort are fond of saying, what use is half a wing, right? Have you ever seen a fucking penguin?
Life, the universe, and everything else. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else.
I don't know, Zune? Is that still a thing?
Hi, I'm the Supreme Irreverend Dr. Randy Tyson from the Legion of Reason Diversion. Join me and my co-hosts, Christine Shelska, Twyla, and Nate Phelps, as we explore issues at the intersection of atheism, humanism, and skepticism. Topics range from alternative medicine to the interference of religion in public policy. We often have special guests to help us understand the topic du jour. Previous guests include biologist Jerry Coyne, ex-Muslim author Ali Rizvi, philosopher Peter Boghossian, and the late physicist Victor Stanger. You can watch us on the Legion of Reason YouTube channel or subscribe to the audio version through your favorite podcatcher such as iTunes or Stitcher. And don't forget to like the Legion of Reason Facebook page.
Every night on television we see satire, we see comedy, we see people poking fun at politicians, at all sorts of things. Why should religion, especially the Muslim religion, why should that be immune from people making fun of it? Not that this is making fun of it, I understand, but even so, why should you think that Islam should be uniquely immune from the things that politicians are not immune from and the rest of us are not immune from? Why are you so privileged in taking offense?
All right, joining us online is our old friend Thomas Westbrook. He is the host behind the Holy Koolaid channel and one of the co-hosts of the Here and How podcast. He's a snappy dresser and a snazzy dancer. Thomas, thank you so much for joining us back at Left of the Valley.
Thank you for having me. I didn't realize that my dance skills are now a thing of infamy.
It's absolutely necessary. Nobody comes on this show unless it's a bit like Helen. You know, you have to do a dance move to come on the show.
Helen? You mean Ellen?
Helen. What's her name? Whatever her name is.
Ellen!
Oh, whatever. The White Oprah, whatever her name is.
I'm so offended right now. Me too.
Thomas, if you'd be so kind, maybe you'd give us, because maybe some of our listeners missed the first show you were on with us, maybe you'd be so kind to give us a bio as to who Thomas Westbrook is.
So I am a full-time secular activist. I make animations that are laser-focused and hopefully fun, funny, entertaining, you throw in pop culture references and humor and stuff. But I try to take down misinformation. I go after this mindset of anti-intellectualism, and I try to show that, like, we can know how the universe works. I'll debunk alternative medicine. I'll go after people like psychics who are really just preying on the bereaved and preying on the vulnerable and the ignorant. I'll go after faith healers and all kinds of charlatans. And I also try to show why I believe the things that I believe, and I'll cover philosophy, science, and whatnot. I also have a podcast called The Here and How, where we explore big ideas in the future of science and human development and where we can go as a species and kind of the history of how we've gotten here. And so I kind of do the full gamut. I've been going to conferences. I just started speaking and doing a little bit of the speaking circuit at both skeptic and atheist conferences. I'm just trying to kind of pull the movement together and provide a little bit of unity and cohesion. So I've been putting together groups of YouTubers and podcasters and stuff to try to find our points of commonality and show that we really are in this fight together. We are in a fight to promote humanism, to promote save the human race from whether it's climate change or extreme tribalism.
Yeah.
Just bring a little bit of cohesiveness to this mad world.
Mm-hmm. I've noticed that you didn't invite us to that group.
That's because we're not cool enough.
It's because we're bottom of the barrel. That's why.
Hey, but I have a puppy now, so I should be in all groups. Sorry.
There's a podcast group I think you guys are in.
Really? Oh, the probably is.
the YouTuber group is a little bit exclusive because I set kind of a minimum of about 2,000 subs to get in. So like if someone is really serious about it and they're doing it full time and they're improving and stuff, I'm happy to give tips and stuff to smaller YouTubers, and I do make exceptions if their content is really quality. But I want to have the group really as a place for people who are serious and making regular content to bounce ideas off of each other.
Definitely.
So we get no chance whatsoever. We're not that serious and we're not that quality. But moving on. Thomas,
Our personalities are quality, though. That's what matters.
You guys are great.
Oh. Yes, in small doses.
Yeah.
Thomas, lately you've been quite vocal on things that have been happening in your country and abroad concerning the Catholic Church. And I wanted to bring you on the show to basically so you can voice your opinion on what the hell is going on down there. So maybe you'd be so kind to give us your insights.
Well, so this actually happened a couple months ago in Pennsylvania. There was a leak where, well, not so much a leak as an investigation into the Catholic Church, where the grand jury in Pennsylvania released this massive report that basically is this scathing report that showed that there were hundreds and hundreds of abusive priests that, this information was pulled from the Catholic Church's own records.
Yeah.
And they found this, I want to say a treasure trove of data, but unfortunately when you're dealing with tragedies, the wording doesn't exactly suit the case.
Garbage fire?
Yeah. And it was just this massive collection of records of priests who had been shuffled around, who had been moved, whenever things got too public or too heated, and there was no justice. These people didn't, face trial. They were basically shuffled around and protected by the Catholic Church. And this isn't new. This is something that, the Boston Globe revealed. This is something that has been revealed to have happened at pretty much everywhere that the Catholic Church has had a significant footprint. It's happened in Chile. It's happened in Australia, in the Philippines, in the UK. Ireland specifically had a huge scandal and cover-up that was made public. And now the survivors network of those abused by priests has been pushing for a grand jury investigation into all 50 states in the United States. And so you can actually go to their website and request that, you put in your state and stuff, and it'll come up with who's your attorney general and how you can submit a request to have an investigation into the Catholic Church in your state.
Wow.
To look for all this stuff that's going on.
Does that, we're not Americans, but we do have some American listeners. I would certainly encourage them to do that.
Yeah.
But does that actually have an actual impact on the Attorney General? The Attorney Generals are open to actually open these investigations?
Yeah, for the most part, if there is enough blowback, if there's enough outrage, then they're listening. They do take account of how many letters are they getting in, how many people want this to happen, and they're not just going to turn a blind eye if they're getting flooded with thousands and thousands and thousands of requests. If they get like one or two emails and everyone else is like, no, the Catholic Church is fine here, then they might not respond. But if there's a big enough of an outrage, and there should be, we're talking about children getting raped.
Yeah.
On a massive scale, where everywhere that they've been, that this has been investigated, they've turned up huge numbers. I want to say that there were 1,000 victims. It's been a while since I was looking at the exact numbers, but in Pennsylvania, it was a handful of dioceses, like 4 or 5 dioceses, and they maybe 6, but they had 1,000 different cases of child abuse, and there were over 300 priests, and this is in one tiny little pocket, and there are thousands of ecclesiastical jurisdictions worldwide. This was just looking at like 5 or 6 of them.
That's insane.
So,
and we should also point out these are the thousands that we know of that actually have come forward and have actually been documented.
Yeah. So if you go to the organization is called SNAP, the Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests. They've been around for decades. They're one of the biggest organizations that fights for the rights of those abused. Because oftentimes, it'll take imagine if you're raped by someone who is a father figure, a center of morality. He's looked up to and respected. Oftentimes in Catholic communities, priests hold a tremendous amount of power, and they're unquestionable. And even if if it is brought up, sometimes the police will say we don't really want to hear about it. Oftentimes they're Catholic or they're ultra religious as well, and then they have a multi-billion-dollar church willing to go to bat for them, willing to pay off the survivors to give them hush money, basically, to not come forward or not press the case. And then oftentimes they'll fight legal battles on behalf of the priests to keep it on the down low and to keep their records hidden. The Catholic Church has paid out billions of dollars in settlements and in damages in the U.S. alone in the last few years.
That's insane.
Thomas, I'm going to ask you a purely political question here, if you don't mind. This is just for if you don't know, you don't have to answer that question if you don't know. But here in Canada, for example, when you have the different branches of government, municipal, provincial, or state-wise for you guys, and then you have federal, if you send a letter to your municipality, to your mayor, for example, the mayor assumes that you know 2 other people that agree with you. If you send your letter to your state or province for us, the state government assumes that you know 5 other people that agree with you. So your letter counts for 5 if you wish. And if you send it to the federal government, it counts for 20. Does the U.S. government work in the same kind of way? Do you know by any chance?
I don't know that there's any kind of assumption like that. Okay. I would think that any letter that they get like that they would anyone would know that most likely you're not the only person.
Yeah, okay. It's just a question out of curiosity because we have this thing here, and I thought maybe the Americans had something very similar.
I will say on that note, so I was just at the Freedom from Religion Foundation conference this last weekend, and I was speaking with Andrew Seidel, who he's one of the attorneys for the FFRF, and he goes to bat fighting for the separation of church and state and for the freedom and rights of the non-religious, and to try to keep religion out of government. And I was asking him, what is it actually effective to send in these letters to your representatives and to send them into your congressmen and your governors and whatnot? And he said, absolutely, because even if they don't see the exact letter word for word, they do, their secretaries they'll tally up, even if all the person is seeing is, okay, this motion, there's, we got all these responses and we got 5,000 people in favor and 600 against. They want to get a feel for what the people want, because if all of their constituents are, writing in, you generally don't write in about something unless you have a little bit of either anger or, you have a little bit of emotion behind it. It's something that you care deeply about. So if there are, 100,000 people in one region that send in a letter, an angry letter saying, we're against this, we're opposed to this, and the politician doesn't listen, then they're shooting themselves in the foot come election time. Now, because it's obviously an issue that people care a lot about. That doesn't necessarily mean that they won't be reelected, but they're hurting their chances. And they want to get a feel for, what are people really passionate about? What do they care about? What issues can I have some leeway to vote on that people, kind of slips under the radar, and what are people paying attention to? And so they do get this information. They absolutely do look at it, even if it's just a number, even if it's just, 6,000 people were against this motion and wrote in about it. They hear that, and that is powerful, that it does make an impact and it does make a difference. So I don't know if necessarily if they have, if they're doing the math thinking, well, 6,000 people wrote in, so you multiply that times 3, I don't know if they do that per se, but at the very least, if you're getting into public office, especially, at a congressional level, you're probably spending millions of dollars on your campaign, or at least a significant amount of money on your campaign. You probably have some type of data scientist crunching the numbers, trying to figure out, what's working, what's not, what they should listen to and pay attention to, and what they shouldn't. And I would be very surprised if they're not doing something similar, or at least taking some stuff like that into account. I can't speak for every politician, but that's just my assumption.
Okay, fair enough. Thomas, these scandals, these Catholic Church scandals, have not been just popping out in the States. They've been popping out. The latest I heard was Germany was having these kind of issues too. Now, the United States does stand alone in a way because it's actually the most religious country of the quote-unquote Western powers. Do you feel that you'll have an adequate response from the U.S. government to help get to the bottom of this? Are you optimistic about this, or are you more pessimistic?
Well, in this current political climate, I don't think that we're going to see anything top down. I don't think that we're going to see something coming from the federal government in the U.S. Yeah. But what's happening is this is coming bottom up. This is something that it's not just atheists that are pissed off about this. In fact, a lot of the people who are submitting these petitions for investigations are Catholics whose own kids have been abused. This survivors network of those abused by priests, it's not an atheist organization. It's not a religious organization. It's non-denominational, non-religiously affiliated. But it's a lot of the people even who work in this organization have been abused by priests themselves, or they've had family members who have been, and so they understand the pain that comes from this. And so what's happening is it's this ground up, bottom up movement that is really driving this change. And so it's people going to their local governments, to their attorney generals at the state level. This isn't something that's happening top down. It's not some federal indictment of the entire Catholic Church. It's something that's happening with local dioceses, and it's happening in mass, and it's already working. There's already been moves to investigate a number of states. I'm not sure the exact number now that are being looked into, but last I heard, there after the Pennsylvania one, there were quite a few other states that were opening investigations as well.
Good. We've been seeing lately a lot of interesting stories. Like a couple of weeks ago, we talked about a little story that came out of Argentina where thousands of women signed a letter to the Catholic Church demanding a letter of apostasy.
Apostasy or apology?
Apostasy. They wanted to get out of the church altogether, and they wanted to submit a form for apostasy to get out of the church. And this is a movement led by women in Argentina, of all places, where the Pope is actually currently from. Do you think that we are maybe looking, in your humble opinion, maybe the beginning of the end of the Catholic Church?
I think it's way too early to say that. This is an organization that, their numbers are, if not in the hundreds of millions, or if not in the billions, in the hundreds of or if not over a billion, in the hundreds of millions. It's now, how many of those are actually practicing Catholics, how many of those are actually tithing Catholics is a different story. But it is a massive organization with deep coffers. The Vatican has so many protections because it's not just a church. It's not just a religious organization. It's a country. It has diplomatic immunity. It has all kinds of powers that no other religion really has. You could kind of point to Islam and Saudi Arabia and stuff, but Saudi Arabia is a country. It's not, the Muslim religion's country. It's just a country that happens to be the seat of, where Mecca is housed, where, their most sacred place for pilgrimage is located. But even the Muslim church is so divided the Muslim church, the Muslim religion is so divided into, Sunni and Shia and Ismaili and Sufi, and, they have all these other branches just like Christianity does, but they don't have the same level that the Catholic Church has when it comes to having the recognition of actually having a religion where the head of the church is the head of the religion as well, where, he's both the vicar of Christ on earth, the voice of God, speaking to man, and at the same time the head of a extremely powerful, extremely wealthy country. Nobody's going to go to war with the Catholic Church. It would be diplomatic suicide. Nobody's going to sanction the Catholic Church or the Vatican. It would be suicide. You would have all these people in your own country who would just be outraged by it. There's still enough, and if you look at the defense of the Catholic Church, you have organizations like the Catholic League in the United States that's a multi-million-dollar organization, and their president is paid $500,000 basically to defend the actions of the Catholic Church in the U.S. And they say, it's to prevent Catholic discrimination. Well, if you call it Catholic discrimination to want justice for, children who have been raped by priests, if you think that that's discriminating against Catholics, then that's a whole nother problem. But it's insane the kind of hoops and the kind of backbends that people like Bill Donahue will go through to defend this organization.
Yeah, I believe that when this Pennsylvania incident came out, he basically stated that the kids were not penetrated, therefore they were not raped.
Well, he said not all of them were penetrated.
Yeah, so I was like, wow. I mean, talk about semantics here.
Yeah, as if when you're a kid and being there was a case in Ireland that I put up in one of my videos. Is this old man talking about how he was literally stripped naked and then beaten head to toe, without a shred of cloth, just completely just beaten, and then he was raped. But it's but if he wasn't raped, then the beating would be okay, right? Because that's not abuse. It's disgusting. It's disgusting the kind of arguments that they put forth to defend their church. And he'll say things like, they haven't really been indicted yet. Well, they haven't been indicted because the fucking Catholic Church has covered it up. And I apologize for swearing on your show, but it's child rape is one of those issues that it rightfully makes you angry.
Don't you fucking swear on our show, man. Do you know what I find mind-blowing is the apathy from the public about something like this. I mean, I was talking to some folks that are Catholics and they're Italians and all that, and I'm trying to say, wow, isn't that like a tragedy of what's going on with the Catholic Church and the priest and all that? And they say, oh, well, we've known this forever. It's like, well, wait a minute. If you know this forever, how come you've never, and why are you still a Catholic? How come you've never spoken up? Well, we just know that priests were diddling kids forever. That's why we never sent my kid to become a choir boy or something like that. It's like, holy crap, I don't understand that mentality. What the hell are these people thinking?
Yeah, I don't have an exact source on this, but I saw one guy being interviewed. I don't remember the news outlet, but he was talking about how there was a case written as far back as like the first or the second century or something AD, like that there was a case of like abuse by priests and stuff. Like it was going way back. And then there was another guy, and he was talking about how he's like, yeah, I was abused by a priest as a kid, and it took me decades to come forward just because, you feel like you're going against the entire community. You're going against God. This is a man of God, and who's going to believe you that you're going against a priest? But everybody knew. Everyone knew, and they would say, oh yeah, Father Feelsy hands over there, and like they would all joke about it. And in a way, they're complicit.
Yes.
They are continuing to donate and attend a church that is raping children and covering it up on a mass scale. If you're still going to a Catholic church, and if you're still donating to a Catholic church that refuses to make the necessary changes, after Boston, they came forward and they said, oh, we're going to have a zero tolerance policy. If this ever happens again, we'll crack down on the priests. And then what did they find? They found that these priests were getting relocated to South America. One guy was put in charge of an orphanage, over dozens of kids, and he's a known child molester. No, and the Catholic Church knew about it. They knew about the allegations. They covered it up. And this is not one case. This is hundreds of cases. In the Philippines, it was happening at a massive scale. And they're like, well, we just can't. We don't have the resources to look into all these cases. And so it's not just that they are investigating it and making it public. They're not doing that. They're not making it. They're not turning over their records to the authorities, to the police. They're hiding it. They're complicit in it. But they're also oftentimes turning the other way, shielding and protecting the rapists, and they're keeping them in charge of kids. They're not just relocating them to Rome or just taking them away from kids while they investigate. They're continuing to work in and around children while this is all going on, and it's disgusting. So anyone who continues to support the Catholic Church with all of this happening is 100% complicit in it.
Yeah.
I think I remember a line from Bill Maher's movie when he was saying, if you were part of any other club, whether a sports club or a political club or anything like that, that was guilty of so much misogyny and rape and atrocities, you'd resign in disgust, And so
you wouldn't just resign; you would burn it to the ground. I did a video on comparing it to Build-A-Bear, and if let's say, and this is 100% fictional, there's no Build-A-Bear's never done anything like this, but if there was any kind of leak that say one of the employees at Build-A-Bear was hiding little cameras in the eye sockets of these teddy bears and watching your little kids, people would flip out. Yes. There would be mass outrage. They would boycott the company. Now, if you found out that those employees had back rooms where they would take the kids and they would molest them and they would rape them, and then you found out that the organization is covering it up, and then that they're paying hush money, and that they're, have this massive network where they'll move these employees around from one location to another, where they're, the employees have a massive amount of power and closeness and connection with these kids, then you damn well better believe that people would be grabbing their pitchforks and their torches, or in this day and age their AK-47s and their AR-15s, and they would be storming the headquarters of Build-A-Bear and demanding blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's an apt comparison. I think you're quite right.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also interesting when you look at some people in the Catholic Church. It's like, even though there's so much evidence of the atrocities that are happening, they downgrade it in their own minds to like, oh, it's just like once in a while, like it's just that random person. Like I have a sister who, her husband grew up Catholic, and they go to a Catholic church, but she doesn't like Disney because she thinks Disney they're, I don't even, like, she's kind of weird. They sexualize the children and like kind of like, I don't even really know. But then she goes to a Catholic church, and I'm like, I don't understand.
No, yeah.
Now, I don't know that the rate of child abuse is higher among priests. I think that most studies that I've seen have put the number around 6%. That may seem high, but when you look at the overall number globally, it's comparable. I think that there's a lot of cases that never see the light of day, and so the number could be significantly higher. But where I think that my blood gets boiling is not that, oh my God, every single priest is a rapist. I don't think that that's true. I think that there are priests who are good and upstanding and who are solid individuals. I'm not advocating for people going to churches and just beating up priests because they're all child rapists. I don't believe that to be the case for a second. What really outrages me though is, and this is the difference, is that when someone rapes a kid in the general public, they become a sex offender, a child molester. They have a status for life, and they go and they serve jail time. Yeah. And they're never allowed around kids. Again, you're not allowed to then go and work at a daycare if you're known to be someone who is attracted to children and acts on it. Yeah. And for the Catholic Church to have basically become a pedophile's paradise where you can go and pretty much indiscriminately molest kids, and that this organization is going to kind of sweep it under the rug and hush it and move you around if you get caught. You have this extremely massive organization going to bat for you and protecting you, and people even in sometimes judges won't want to touch the case because you're a priest. That's where it gets messed up. It's not that, if let's say that Build-A-Bear had one or two child molesters, I'm sure that, with thousands of employees that they've had some, but when it comes to light, they don't shelter them. They don't shield them. They don't protect them as far as I know. And the Catholic Church has done that. And so that's where it's different. That's where it's, it's like, yes, every organization, when you get to be a massive size with thousands of employees, there's going to be a few people that do things that are illegal, that don't look good for your company. The question is, how do you respond? Yeah. What actions do you take? Yeah. And they've clearly failed on all those counts.
Yeah.
I've also been stunned by, for this week, for example, I was arguing online with one of those Trump supporters, like one of those really QAnon kind of people, really gone beyond the pale there. And these people are insisting that there's a pedophile behind every door. Every Democrat and there's this cabal of pedophiles, satanic pedophile run the world, and Pizzagate and all that shit. And if you listen to these people, they're out to come and get our kids. But yeah, these same people go to church. And they don't seem to make the link at all. And say, you think there's a pedophile behind every door? Maybe you should think there's a pedophile behind every church. And
one thing I've noticed, and I don't think that atheists are any more or less moral. I think that people are people for the most part, and I think that
the comments of Thomas are not necessarily those of Left of the Valley subsidiaries or.
I think that society dictates our morals. I do think morality is subjective, but I think that there are some things that are innate in us, and that human solidarity is one of those things. Mm-hmm. And I look at the atheist community, and one thing that I've noticed is that because we don't have this type of dogma that we're trying to protect at all costs, we're not putting faith above any kind of truth or science or anything. We're trying to just figure out how the world works and create the best world that we can from a humanist perspective. I don't see these kind of cover-ups happening by humanists. And if anything, I've noticed that when there is something that someone gets a little bit feelsy, or they do something that's inappropriate. I look at cases like what happened with Lawrence Krauss or David Silverman, and I don't want to go into all of the details of those. It's been a while. I don't want to dredge it up and argue about, what did he do? What did they do? Yeah. But what I did notice in the community was that there was this instant reaction of, well, I don't really want anything to do with them, at least until, we know more information and know if there's anything to this. And there was a lot of people even went a step further and said, they're a complete scumbag. I'm just throwing them out, like instant, disassociation.
Yes.
And I do believe in due process. I do believe that people are for the most part, I do believe people are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But at the same time, you do what you can to not associate with people who are doing things that are shady or illegal or just,
You can't help but think, but where there's smoke, there's usually fire.
Yeah, and so I don't think that every single person who's ever accused is guilty. There's been cases of people wrongly accused, but I have noticed in our community we're very quick to, we don't just cover up and protect our heroes because they've done some good stuff. We don't just say, oh well, you know what, this person can get away with, child rape because they're the voice of atheism on earth. Well, if Richard Dawkins were to go out and slaughter, 500 people and rape some kids, well, you can't call him a pedophile or a warlord because, he's a hero of atheism. But as soon as you start questioning the Prophet Muhammad, it's a completely different story. And I'm like, why is there a double standard?
Yeah.
Why is one, sacred and unscrutinizable and the other's not? And I'm not saying that atheists are more moral. I'm just saying that I've noticed in our community that at the very least we don't just protect our heroes at that level.
Yeah. Well, Thomas, I mean, come on. Let's face it. What the hell has Richard Dawkins ever done for humanity, right? Besides offer us a new vision of gene therapy and all that. I mean, Mohammed he split the moon in two. I mean, that's fantastic stuff, isn't it?
Well, and did Dawkins ever ride on a horse up to heaven?
Exactly. I want to see Dawkins on a horse, flying horse.
we could turn that into a meme.
That'd be funny. Oh, man. Well, Thomas, thank you so much for explaining all this to us today. I really, really appreciate that. But the mic is all yours, my friend. Be bold, be shameless. What's coming down for your channel and the Here and How podcast?
Well, so I've got a couple things coming up. I'm in the middle of working on a collaboration with another YouTuber named Professor Stick. We're going to be exploring the world of chi energy and chi healing and kind of showing some breakdowns of – I'm going to try to debunk a guy. I'm not going to give away who it is, but there's this guy. He's got all these convincing-looking videos where he spontaneously ignites a piece of paper and he cuts his hand and has it bleed. And I'll be going down to Austin. I'm going to try to I see Matt Dillahunty every once in a while, and I'm going to ask him for advice and tips on regenerating it. And I don't want to give away all the magician's tricks, but if I can cut my hand and make it bleed and heal it, but if I do it where my blood is green or something, then I think that'll be enough to disprove and show it can be done naturally.
Yes. Good point. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Thomas. I really appreciate that. But before I let you go, I got to have you say, hi, I'm Thomas Westbrook, and I took a left in the valley.
Howdy, I'm Thomas Westbrook, and I took a left at the valley.
And that was our friend, Thomas Westbrook. Love Thomas. He's always so informed.
Very.
I highly, highly recommend, by the way, that you listen to his channel, Holy Koolaid, and his wonderful podcast with his co-host, Stephen Woodford and Rachel Oates, the Here and How podcast, which is a great podcast, by the way. It's really, really good. And if you go back into the archives was it about a month ago or 2 ago?
Something like that.
Time is so weird right now.
We interviewed Steven and we had a blast with him. He was an absolute gentleman and everything. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Catholic Church does down the road.
Yeah. And society's response.
Yeah.
And individuals
I get really discouraged when I hear stuff like I was telling you about this person I was talking about. It's, oh, yeah, we've known this forever. I said, well, if you've known this forever, it's like saying, oh, yeah, well, we just never bothered doing anything because it didn't affect me personally.
Yeah,
and
some people don't have empathy, and it's just really sad.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate, but, it's the way it is. So we'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today, guys. You can follow us at leftadvalley.com. You can follow us at LETV Podcast on Twitter, on Facebook. You can send us an email at leftadvalley@outlook.com. Okay, coming up. Where's my schedule? Next week, we'll be talking to our friend Jeremy Montanez. He's the guy who used to vote for Trump, who voted for Trump, and then went on CNN and basically said, oh my God, I made a huge mistake. And he got a lot of flack, and now we're going to ask him, of course, about the upcoming election, the election they just had, and his comments, and see how optimistic he is about the future. And we'll also have a debate between our friend Christian Christensen and our friend Robert Stanley of the Right to Reason podcast. I get to be the moderator.
That should be interesting.
I promise to be impartial.
Good luck.
Unless one of them bribes me. And of course, during December, we'll also have this gentleman called. Where is he? Where's his name? Oh, geez. James Fodor. Okay. And he's got a book called Unreasonable Faith. And we'll be discussing He Who Must Not Be Mentioned, William Lane Craig.
Oh, I thought you were about to say Donald Trump. And
No. We can mention him. We just call him Orange Julius.
Yeah. Harry Potter? We're talking about Harry Potter.
Or Mango Mussolini. And of course, we'll have our Christmas special and our end of the year recap. And we'll also have Tom and Cecil
I'm so excited.
of Cognitive Dissonance to end the year with us. Well, just about before our Christmas show, anyway. So we'll have fun with that. And then the whole new year begins after that.
Yeah.
We'll see what goes down. So, we always have things coming up.
We do.
Can't believe it's almost the end of the year.
I know. Time flies.
When you're having fun.
Thank you, ladies.
It's been good. Now I gotta go home and cuddle my puppy.
Oh, jeez. At least she's not talking about Harry Potter.
adorable.
We have things to do before we go and cuddle the...
I have to buy her a Hufflepuff outfit.
Oh, God. All right. Thank you.
Oh, my
Until next time.
She's gonna be so cute.
I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.
America, if not the UK as well, where they go so far as to even like cover up table legs because they looked too provocative.
Seriously?
Yes.
No way.
Yeah.
That is so stupid.
I think I have heard about that.
Yeah. It was like this era of like hyper prudishness
Someone
where
looked at
everything
like, I want
had
to fuck
to.
that table leg. I'm gonna fuck that table leg.
See, this is why aliens don't visit us. We are the Alabama of the universe. I really think so. And they just say, you know what, Zord, don't even stop there. These people are crazy.
Rural Alabama.
The rural Alabama of the universe. Good one. All right.
It's like even NASA is probing Uranus. And...
Okay.
We would just be so misunderstood by aliens.
They're like, wait, you named a planet what?
Funny thing is, Uranus was first named George. It was named after King George.
Seriously? Why didn't you
It's
do
true.
that? That's so cute.
Well, it's because George turned out to be an asshole as well, so they renamed it Uranus.
How I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.